For decades, Mars appeared to be the ultimate, final frontier for space research. Of course, there are many worlds beyond Mars, but scientists have been imagining humanity living permanently on the red planet since the birth of the space age. However, today, some people have abandoned the belief that Mars represents the future and instead prefer to focus on Venus. Hello everyone, welcome back to Zeey, and today we answering astounding question, why do tech giants now prefer Venus instead of Mars? Do you require answers to the major questions? Then why not subscribe to Zeey for more videos like this one and ring the bell for more thought-provoking information. Guillermo Sondland, a businessman, established the Humans to Venus Foundation in 2023. Since the early 2000s, Sondland has been pushing affluent businessmen to engage in space research through space entrepreneurship. He is, however, a co-founder of OceanGate, the corporation best known for the disastrous implosion of the Titan submarine in June 2023. Sondland departed OceanGate in 2013, a decade before the sub's implosion, which killed 5 passengers, including the company's CEO and co-founder Stockton Rush. Sondland now aims to land people on Venus by 2050, or more accurately into Venus's atmosphere. He's banking on the cloud colony notion, a popular, hypothetical sort of human dwelling that could keep people alive on Venus, a planet so deadly that it's dubbed Earth's evil twin. Sondland has long drawn parallels between ocean and space science, which is why shifting from deep-sea study to space makes sense. He hopes to establish a large enough colony on Venus that 1,000 people can live there permanently. However, his approach has been welcomed with considerable suspicion. After all, OceanGate demonstrated what can happen when affluent entrepreneurs innovate in such fields. Many people may wonder why Venus and not Mars. True, Mars has several issues, such as severe radiation exposure, but its temperatures, while extreme, are nowhere like those of Venus. Furthermore, numerous space businesses, from commercial ones like SpaceX to NASA itself, have continued to invest in Mars research and missions in the hope of bringing humans to the red planet in the near future. In the meantime, established researchers haven't completely abandoned Venus. NASA is in fact building multiple missions to visit our evil twin. The first is Veritas, which stands for Venus Emissivity, Radio Science, NSAR, Topography, and Spectroscopy. Veritas will be outfitted with instruments that will allow it to study Venus from orbit like never before. Second, Da Vinci, or Deep Atmospheric Venus Investigation of Noble Gases, Chemistry and Imaging, will visit the planet's surface for the first time in decades. Both are scheduled to launch by the end of the 2020s and arrive on Venus around 2030. So it's not like Venus has been abandoned completely, and it desperately needs outside industrialists to fund crucial missions to get there. Perhaps NASA's cautious approach is less appealing to the raw romanticism of establishing a new route for humanity in this hostile environment. In summary, Venus is still a difficult sell. Despite the fact that the surface of Venus is so hostile that humanity would almost certainly never be able to live there, the clouds tell a different picture. The atmosphere is still utterly non-breathable, but we be sheltered from radiation and benefit from Venus's other Earth-like properties, such as its gravity, which is quite similar to Earth's gravity. The idea of living there is feasible enough that NASA has developed its own models, most notably the High-Altitude Venus Operational Concept, or HAVOC, that depict how these cloud homes might come to be. In essence, the atmosphere of Venus is so dense that ordinary air floats. This is the same mechanism that allows airships to float on Earth, employing light gases like helium and hydrogen. However, the fact that we might theoretically use only Earth's ordinary air on Venus is a great plus because it lacks the primary limitations of substances like helium or hydrogen. Helium is pricey in the volumes required for airships, while hydrogen is very flammable. Regular air, on the other hand, is plentiful and will not ignite, therefore there are reasons to be optimistic. Furthermore, airships and balloons already exist. We've had them for hundreds of years, so no really cutting-edge technology is required. In general, the concept of developing floating cities is not new. It's as old as other outlandish space conceptions, such as orbital cities and colonies, which were conceived of by Soviet scientists in the early 1970s. Of course, the Soviets were also responsible for several of the most notable Venusian milestones, such as Venera for successfully measuring Venus's atmosphere in 1967. At the time, scientists hoped to find liquid water on Venus, which we now know is impossible given the planet's surface temperature of roughly 900 degrees Fahrenheit. However, because the high temperatures are all caused by the dense atmosphere trapping heat, we also know that building high in the cloud belt is a smart choice. We've actually become remarkably knowledgeable about what would and wouldn't work over the years. But one question remains: why would we want to live on Venus in the first place? Yes, it would be a thrilling advance for science and space exploration, but what would be the point? While Venus, as a terrestrial planet so similar to Earth, is expected to have abundance of resources that we could possibly harvest, the actual process of collecting them would be extremely complex. Because we would never be able to reach the surface, we would have to perform everything remotely using equipment engineered to withstand both great atmospheric pressure and extreme heat. This is far more complicated than even deep-sea research. Sure, some of the pressure resistance principles would apply, but submarines and submersibles don't have to struggle with extremely dramatic temperature gradients. The lowest sea temperature ever measured on Earth, for example, was 27.3 degrees Fahrenheit beneath an Antarctic glacier not cold at all, while the warmest sea temperature ever recorded is 99 degrees Fahrenheit in the Persian Gulf. So we'd need machines that look like submarines but can tolerate never-before-seen temperature extremes. On the one hand, this is feasible, as there are several building materials that would not melt in Venus's atmosphere, such as steel. But on the other hand, is the cost justified? Most likely not. So we're back to the idea of exploring Venus for the sake of exploring. And possibly the only probable return on investment for private enterprises would be the likely high price tag for tickets to Venus, though Sondheim does not appear to have mentioned charging his Venusian colonists yet. To return to OceanGate, since journeying down to the Titanic ruins generates no resources, OceanGate funded its activities by charging exorbitant fees to its super-rich passengers. The ticket price for the disastrous 2023 cruise was $250,000. That's for a vacation that was meant to last only a few hours if all went well. With Venus in our sights, we'd need to dramatically expand. Commercial space travel is now even more pricey, with Virgin Galactic costing nearly $500,000 each ticket. And tickets for Blue Origin's inaugural trip on New Shepard cost as much as $28 million unless you were invited as a distinguished guest, as William Shatner was, and paid nothing. But Venus is still something far larger. A typical voyage there would take around 4 months just to arrive, and may take 6 months or more. This means that any Venus corporation would have to charge ticket rates that cover the costs of creating rockets, long-distance spacecraft, and the colony itself. And this is for a journey that would almost likely be fraught with danger even if everything went as planned. Any colony would quickly become the most costly hotel in history, with stays of several months required. Using Virgin Galactic as a baseline, which charges $450,000 for a 90-minute space voyage, 1 day in orbit would cost $7.2 million. Then, assuming that one of these Venus flights takes 4 months either way, and you want to stay for a few months, we have a year of time both in space and on Venus. Using Virgin's figures, a year-long flight to Venus would cost a whopping $1.73 billion. On average, billionaires hold around 1% of their wealth in liquid cash. Sure, it's still a lot of money, but they'd probably have to sell more assets just to cover the costs of such an extravagant enterprise. For the time being, while attention is shifting away from Mars, interest in Venus is still in its early stages. And there are certainly some significant issues to be resolved. We haven't even addressed all of the various difficulties that could emerge in this film. Even 1,000 people cannot solve the challenges of extreme isolation. The inconvenient communication lag, with Venus being around 3 light minutes distant from us on Earth. This would not be a simple undertaking. And while Sondland may desire his Venus city to accommodate 1,000 people, with only 2,700 billionaires in the globe, how probable is it that 1,000 of them will visit at the same time? And how likely is it that there will be no terrible tragedies along the road, and that everything will be funded and go exactly as planned? What are your thoughts? Is there a role for private sector in space exploration, or is it so prohibitively expensive and dangerous that space colony creation should be left to space agencies? Venus is a fascinating planet and more research is always intriguing. However, we have a long way to go before sending humans there. Not that the richest of the rich will be deterred. Because of this, some tech titans are forsaking Mars in favor of Venus. What are your thoughts? Is there anything we left out? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to stay up to date on our latest content.